Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Delighted to have Niall with me today, and we are here recapping a stacked weekend of boxing featuring a bit of everything. We had a bit of controversy, we had a masterful performance, we had drama, a lot of talking points, and we're going to try and unpack it as best we can. We'll try not to keep you too long, and hopefully you enjoyed. If you do enjoy it, of course, subscribe to the channel. Give us your thoughts on what you're saying. If you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we've got thick skin. We can take it. We're not going to cry. We've had plenty in the past, so we'll get stuck into it. And now I think we'll start chronologically with the first fight to happen. Certainly the fight that took the least out of me in terms of fatigue because it was on a reasonable hour. And of course, Oleksandr Usyk, second time becoming heavyweight undisputed champion of the world, three-time undisputed champion in total, stopping Daniel Dubois in the fifth round of their rematch at Wembley Stadium. How did you think the fight was going to play out? I think a lot of people I was seeing were going Dubois early, Usyk late or points. I thought Usyk late. I thought it wouldn't be as quick as it was, but Alexander Usyk dispatching of Daniel Dubois in ruthless fashion we don't often see from him. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought probably to kind of echo what you were saying. I think the only surprise for me was how quick it was. I think I did expect an Usyk stoppage as well. You know, people picking Dubois, as good as Dubois had been, and the run he'd been on and the run of confidence. I don't see how you could have picked him to beat Alexander Usyk, to be quite honest with you. Especially, at the first fight, there was that kind of bit of controversy in the first fight where the low blow slash body shot. But yeah, I just think that Dubois would not have been able to make the adjustments to beat Alexander Usyk, and it turned out to be the case. There's no shame in that, but it was a marvelous performance from Usyk. It really was right from the opening bell. In terms of his footwork, his countering off Dubois' jab, it was just beautiful. It really was, and then the finish was clinical. Especially the first shot that he dropped him out, I believe it was a right hand. It was when Dubois kind of had him cornered, and you'd think, okay, this is where he's gonna get his best work off, Dubois, and then Usyk just pulls that right hand out and drops him, and then closes the show with the left. Yeah, a little bit of kind of discussion point on the ending. A bit of controversy whether he kind of did he quit again. We don't really like using that word, but I don't know. I'm still quite undecided on it whether he quit or whether his brain was just so scrambled from the left hand. Like, what would you think on that?
I thought he could have got up, if I'm being honest. I thought he could have made the count. He had his legs under him. He was able to walk straight back to the corner at 10 or 11. But you used the perfect words. His brain was scrambled. I'm not so sure if it was necessarily solely from that left hook, but he was really struggling again mentally with Alexander Usyk. I remember, and the thing is, Dubois sort of done everything everyone said he should do. He started faster. He did put it on Usyk. The narrative was he had to make a dent in him in their first six rounds, but because he done that, and had the privilege of being there, and actually was able to speak to Ross Amber, Usyk's cut man, and he was saying, Dubois, we thought he'd start fast. He started too fast. There was gaps, and because he started so fast, he fatigued quicker, and he sort of got to the place he was in round nine of their first fight. Sort of halfway through the fourth round in this one, and when he was dropped the first time, he sort of looked to his corner, and as I say, I think he could have got up. The towel did come in, I think, at around nine of the count when the fight was stopped from Don Charles, and you wonder, was that an attempt to try and save face for his fighter? And that's three times now. Potentially, people will label that accusation at the bar, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it. The fight was only going to go one way from that point on, and as I said, he adopted the approach people said he should, and so you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and I think people can try and overanalyze it. I saw Simon Jordan saying the tactics were wrong from Dubois, even though it was what everyone said he should do. You have to just hold your hands up. He's in with an all-time great, and there's no tactics I could employ to beat Canelo in a fight. If I go in and get chinned around, it's not because my game plan was wrong. And obviously, it's nowhere near that level of disparity. But sometimes someone just has your number. And in Alexander Usyk's case, he's had the number of everyone he's faced, which leads me on to my next point. I feel as if after this fight, we're seeing more and more comparisons than we have before of Usyk with, great champions of previous years. People talk about Usyk versus a peak Mike Tyson, Usyk versus Lennox Lewis. And we're not going to start going into those hypothetical matchups because we can and we have already debated them at length in WhatsApp groups. But just, I mean, you've got to put Usyk up there at the very, very top, towards the very top of certainly your heavyweight all timers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It can't be up for any sort of a debate. We kind of we romanticize about the old time fighters, and rightly so. They've paved their way with their legacy, but Usyk is absolutely up there. He's the best heavyweight of this era, and he's one of the best heavyweights we've ever seen. Like you look what he's done. Well, across two weight divisions, really. He's the best cruiserweight of all time, in my opinion. Um, Going undisputed then at cruiserweight and heavyweight twice. Not only beating fighters, not only beating the biggest kind of threats to him in the division, beating them twice over. Beating Fury twice, Joshua twice, Dubois twice, and doing it easily. It's just also doing it in his opponent's backyard for the most part. It's he's a phenom. Defies belief what we're watching. The only sad thing is that we probably don't have long left of him, but yeah, it's been absolutely outstanding. It really has, and when it's all said and done, he is one of the best ever. Where would I rank him? Maybe I don't know, top five all time heavyweights. Yeah, I think it's undoubted. It's not even up for a discussion as much as you want to kind of fawn and romanticize over previous generations. He belongs with any of them, and I was saying in the WhatsApp group yesterday that, as you said, we're not going to kind of go in depth on fantasy matchups, but I'd favour him against anybody. I think, to be honest with you, there's nobody I could confidently pick against him. That's the biggest compliment that I could pay Usyk.
Yeah, and you make a good point there when you talk about people tend to sort of romanticize fighters, and not just fighters, it happens in all sports, and look back with maybe nostalgic glasses on. And I think that's testament to how great Usyk is. The fact that people are put him in that category when he's still fighting. 90% of the time, it's once someone's hung up the gloves or retired from the sport that they really get the credit they fully deserve. And as you say, going to opponents' backyards, basically every major fight he's had, apart from the ones in Saudi Arabia, certainly towards the back end. And as well, really without a semblance of controversy in any of those fights. I mean, the majority of people don't think the shot of Dubois in the first fight to put him down was a legal blow. Very few people think there was any controversy with that. The Barios fight was close. Again, vast majority of people believe that was the right decision. Of course, that was in Barios' backyard. And, you know, we often, in that chat, we debate everything around resumes, and there's very few fighters you can't pick a hole in the resume, but with Usyk, you really can't. And I know he's not maybe had, like the Floyd Mayweather's had 50 fights. I think Usyk's had around half that, which is obviously going to play into it. But he got to the high level a lot quicker than some of these guys. He was fighting for world titles after, I think, 9 fights, 10 fights. And yeah, just an incredible achievement. Just one more on this because we've got loads to talk about. I I didn't think Dubai would win this fight, but I wouldn't have been hugely shocked. It wouldn't have been an all-time upset for me, and that would have really disappointed me because not because of anything against Daniel Dubois, but you don't want to see Usyk lose these fights where he has little to gain, where he almost not tarnishes his legacy, but it would take away, of course, if he was defeated. And I was worried he was 38, potentially he's bound to be slowing down, but showed no signs of it. Sounds like he's going to carry on for at least one more. Who would you like to see him fight? I mean, it feels silly asking if there's anyone you think to beat him, but there are contenders who have earned their shot. Joseph Parker's been waiting a while. Ajit Kabiel on an incredible run as well. Who do you want to see this guy fight next?
Yeah, it's been the big question really since Saturday night. As you said, I'd hate to see him go on too long and lose a fight that he probably shouldn't have lost or shouldn't have taken. But in terms of heavyweights, he's done it all. I'd love to see him ride off into the sunset. It's probably not going to happen. Joseph Parker is the one that deserves it. I think that's not up for debate at all. The run he's been on, it just does nothing for me in terms of Usyk's kind of legacy. and Parker has nothing to that'll beat Oleksandr Usyk. As skilled as he is, he's got nothing to put a dent in Usyk at all. I was actually talking to Owen on a video yesterday, and the most curious aspect of that fight for me is seeing the game plan that Andy Lee would put together to try and beat Usyk, but I just don't think it'll be enough, and that's no shame on Parker. I just wouldn't want to see it. It does nothing for Usyk. Adjakabi, you mentioned, probably a tougher test than Joseph Parker, to be honest, stylistically for Usyk, but again, does nothing for him. I think the fight that it will be Tyson Fury. I think it'll be a Tyson Fury trilogy, to be quite honest with you. Which I don't want to see either. That's done. That's settled at 2-0. The hype was there for the first two fights. We all wanted to see them. Fury's proved that he can't do it, although they were, relatively close fights. They were conclusive still for Usyk, but yeah, it just does nothing for his legacy. I'll tell you the fight I want to see, and be interesting to get your take on it. The only kind of thing that would further define his legacy for me is if it was feasible to go back down to cruiserweight and get in with Joy Opataya and see could he get back to cruiserweight and knock off Joy Opataya. That'd be another stamp of greatness for him, for me. But I don't know what's your thoughts on that and how feasible it'd be. But Joy Opataya would be the one for me.
Yeah, obviously Usyk has filled out a bit more than you look at the Usyk that fought Derek Chisora compared to who we saw on Saturday night. He is a physically bigger guy. He has filled out a bit at heavyweight. Not a massive heavyweight. Still comes in at is in the 220s. So you would think on the face of it, a water cut down to 200 pounds would be physically doable. Although how much that appeals to him at 38, I would very much doubt. And I think it would take a bit out of him as well to come down to fight Jaya Pataya. I think hypothetically speaking, if Jaya Pataya was to fight Zerdo Ramirez, cement his status as number one cruiserweight, and then Usyk was to come down and beat him there, that would bolster his legacy more than anything really available at heavyweight. I agree with you. I think of the realistic options, yeah, Parker. You could say because Parker's a former world champion, he's beat a world champion, a former world champion in Deontay Wilder, he's beat Zhang. It would add a bit. It wouldn't, it's hard to improve it anyway. It wouldn't improve it drastically. Cabell, I agree, tougher test, particularly because of the body work. Last name I'll throw in, and then we'll move on, is potentially, again, unlikely, as if a fight between Usyk and Moses Itauma was to happen maybe next year, because the consensus is Itauma's going to be the next king, and that could almost be like a Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko type fight, where you maybe get the next best of an era slightly before their prime. You're slightly past your prime, and there's still enough there, and that would be a good name in the resume. But we'll see. If I had to guess, I would say it'll be. I don't want to see the Fury trilogy either. Tyson Fury doesn't deserve a third fight against them. He's lost, in my opinion, widely twice, conclusively twice, and he's not fought since. He's not got a name. I think it'll be Parker personally, but we'll see. We do need to move on because we have to talk about, of course, 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Rolling back the years now, I'm not so sure, but battling out a draw against Mario Barrios in their WBC world title fight. Barrios, of course, keeps hold of his world title. Yeah, Pac-Man doing better than a lot of people thought he would. Certainly, myself included in that. I know you stayed up to watch it like myself. What did you make of it? What was your scorecard? First of all, how did you have it?
I had Pacquiao winning. I had 7-5 to Pacquiao. I think he should have got the decision. Credit to him. He did perform better than a lot of people expected, myself and yourself expected, which is, based on, they say you're only as good as your last fight, which Pacquiao's was, 4 years ago against Ugas. He looked terrible. He fought that exhibition in Japan, I believe. He looked terrible. But he put in a performance here, which credit to him. But it's just that Mario Barrios performance was incredibly frustrating. It was incredibly bizarre at times. You know, he just wouldn't let his hands go at times. We were discussing he apologizing for the complaints of Pacquiao. When Pacquiao was saying it was low, overly apologizing, not jumping on him. When Pacquiao basically stopped refereeing the fight himself. and Barrios just froze and just stood there. And I think he's very, very lucky to get out there with his world title. I really do. He just, I've seen some more kind of sinister accusations. I should say about this fight, to be honest, but I just think what it comes down to is he showed Pacquiao too much respect in that fight for me. If I had to kind of have that opinion of it, which is frustrating because as I was saying to Elliot on the review show on Saturday, the reaction show to that, Pacquiao showed Barrios no respect. Pacquiao came back and fought Barrios because he thought he was the weakest champion at welterweight, and he was proven right. But Pacquiao showed him no respect, and Barrios showed him too much respect, to be honest.
I agree with you on everything you've said. Essentially, I had Pacquiao nicking the fight as well. Robbery, perhaps a bit strong, but Barrios, you used the right words, fortunate to still have his WBC world title. Second draw in a row when you look back at the Jesus Ramos fight as well. And I thought it was a bizarre fight. It had almost exhibition like feels to me. I thought Barrios started strong. But Pacquiao at 46, of course, was very, uncomfortable with the body shots, as you say, gesticulating to the referee throughout the fight. And even when the referee was saying, box on, that was legal, Barrios putting the glove up, oh, sorry, Manny. And it was, I thought he looked awful, Barrios. I thought he should have and could have put his foot down in the gas after 3, 4 rounds, and he would have got Pacquiao out of there, I think. But let the fight pass him by. I think you used the right word. Showed him far too much respect, and he allowed Pacquiao with his eye-catching flurries. Even though not all of them were landing, not even close to all the flurries were landing. They were getting a big reaction from the crowd, and whilst it wasn't hurting Barrios, he was doing nothing. So it was enough for Pacquiao to, for me, start banking rounds in the mid stage, and then Barrios had, I say, a flurry. He came back, showed a bit more aggression, and did pick up rounds in the last third of the fight, which ultimately got him the card and all the judges' scorecards. But he was incredibly disappointing, and yeah, he's been criticised and billed as the weakest champion at welterweight, and he certainly did look it in there. But a draw, the final result, a rematch, you would imagine on the cards. It's certainly the biggest fight out there for Mario Barrios. Do anything for you? Who do you think comes out on top? Do you think we'll see a more aggressive, a more spiteful Mario Barrios this time around?
I think it will be the rematch. I think it has to be after that. Manny Pacquiao will be rubbing his hands together now going into a rematch with Barrios after that, you'd have to imagine. I don't think that was the plan for Pacquiao. I think it was, win this and get out. Win or lose, get out. Now it's a draw. He thinks, right, I'll go back and I think he will become the oldest world champion. Because I don't know, that mentality of that Barrios showed on Saturday night just worried me for a potential rematch. It really did. There was no killer instinct there. Too much respect shown, and I agree with you. I know it's not as easy as that, but if you step on the gas and really, have that spite about you, you probably will beat Pacquiao at this stage as well as he fought on Saturday, which he did fight well, but you could still see that he was a 46-year-old man in there at times, especially, with balance and coordination at times in there was lacking. And you'd imagine he'd probably be better. He'd probably be a better version in a rematch, which is even more worrying for Barrios. But yeah, I think Pacquiao will get it done. Get it done in a rematch, and it's bizarre to say because I was watching that ring walk on Saturday from Manny Pacquiao, and it was bizarre to see him walk into the ring for a world title fight, and it's even more bizarre to say that he should be a world champion in 2025. But yeah, I think he will be after the rematch.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange one indeed. I think Barrios, I think will probably win a rematch. I think he'll see what people are saying on social media. You referenced the accusation. We'll just say it. People were saying he looked as if he was paid off. He looked like the fight was fixed, which I think, given the fact that it was scored a draw, you can probably put to bed. I think he fought at a pace that suited Pacquiao down to the ground. It was fought at a very slow pace. All his attacks from Barrios completely one phased, and I don't think there's that many adjustments he would need to make to beat Manny Pacquiao, who could be 47 by the time they fight. But we'll see. Quick word on the undercard here. Chief support, Sebastian Fundora dominating and stopping Tim Tszyu in their rematch. First fight. An upset at the time. The cut that Tim Tszyu suffered, gruesome. How he fought 12 rounds with that, I'll never know. But this time, Fundora, repeating the result in more conclusive fashion. Tszyu looked to me a fighter well on the back nine. Pressure for Fundora way too much was in his face from the opening bell. Dropped Tszyu heavily. Tszyu, of course, a fighter with bags of heart, threw back, landed some good shots of his own, but ultimately badly outgunned by the towering Inferno, who's on quite the run at the minute.
Yeah, it's not surprised me, and I wouldn't. It's not a shock that Fundora won, but I did kind of pick Team Zeal to win this one. Yeah, it's a bizarre career. That it's a bizarre downfall that Team Zeal's had, and it all seemed to stem from that one moment where he got cut in the original fight against Fundora. Yeah, just outgunned is the word for it. I'm a big Team Zeal fan. Well, I was a big Team Zeal fan before the first Fundora fight. He looked to be, the world looked to be his oyster in that one. But the the downfall has been incredible, to be honest with you. And the most kind of worrying sign and the most surprising thing was the ending. The ending of that fight was shocking. It really was. We mentioned earlier with Daniel Dubois quitting. Did he or did he not quit? That seemed to be a bit more of a blatant quit from Team Zero, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, but it is what it is. Apparently what he was asked was, does he want to continue? And he said no, which is worrying for, where his headspace is at mentally. Is that it for him now? Who knows? We seen after the Murtazaliev fight, which was a crazy fight to take straight off the Fundora loss, gets battered, gets stopped, says some worrying things after that one. Um, comes back against Joey Spencer, looks all right, but Joey Spencer is not a benchmark. And another mad decision taking this Fundora fight, in my opinion. And yeah, it's ended bizarrely. So Team Zero needs a serious think about whether he's wants to continue, and if he does want to continue, big changes need to be made.
Yeah, I thought it was insane taking this rematch when they did off, a blowout of Joey Spencer. If you say a fighter very much of a level, a fighter stopped uh, well below, world title contention. And I was very surprised when I saw Tszyu was the favourite for this. I thought that Murtazaliev fight was incredibly concerning. His reflexes looked gone, no head movement. He's never been a particularly slick fighter. And I think against Fundora, all that robustness we saw in his early career when he was on, as you referenced, an incredible run, had completely deserted him. His punch resistance looked to be going. Fundora, a high volume fighter with a fair amount of stoppages, never been a one punch knockout artist, really. Could have easily stopped Tim Tszyu in one punch, the way the shots were affecting him. And as you say, the ending, the most concerning thing. Yeah, a much more blatant quit than we saw with Daniel Dubois. And if he is to carry on, a move up to 160, I think wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. A much more forgiving division at the top end than 154. Certainly, I mean, you look at some of the matchups that are there, and I wouldn't favour Tim Tszyu in any of them. If he is to say at 154, a Josh Kelly fight, I don't think would be the worst thing in the world for him stylistically. Not as big a puncher, but yeah, I think he's one of these fighters who he was on that incredible run, as we both say, taking on sort of the best fighters at 154 bar Jermel Charlo, and but with his style, he was always going to accumulate a lot of damage. And yeah, I think it's another thing. There's fighters who have come up in 154 who are perhaps better than those that were at the business end of the division before. And yes, and Tim Tszyu, a fighter who seems to just fell down that back nine very quickly. So as we say, yeah, a lot of tough conversations need to be had around mentality, around what's left, and where they go next. But last thing, and can't believe we've got this far, and our last talking point is Bam Rodriguez, who is, of course, a favourite of both of ours, stopping Bimolela Kafu in the 10th round of their fight. Kafu's corner throwing the towel in after yeah, 10 rounds of action. Bam, now unified champion at super flyweight against a tough opponent, a fighter I rate in Kafu. But Bam, proving what I think we all know and we all knew, that he looks to be the best fighter at 115 pounds, and a mouth-watering fight with Puma Martinez is locked in for later in the year.
Yeah, as you say, we're both big Bam fans, so we're saving our best for last here, to be honest. But yeah, as expected, gets the job done. Big win, it's Kafu, undefeated world champion, coming off that Kasai Tanaka fight. The thing I think that it fascinated me most about this one is the game plan of Cafu, right from the start. We're both football fans. If you had a heat map of Cafu and that one, it'd just be a square. He
Ultra,
went from
ultra defensive, wasn't it? It was ultra defensive for any football
yeah,
players out there.
it really was. Yeah, corner to corner to corner. I don't think his feet ever touched the center of the ring. We've seen kind of more blatant survival missions, as they call it, in the past. We did have some success, fast counter and trying to get that right hand off. But I think the commentator summed it up perfectly. He was doing enough to have a bit of success, but that was a game plan that was never going to win him the fight. He was just massively outgunned. Bam, way too versatile, way too quick, way too powerful, and it was just only a matter of time. It was a crazy game plan. It was never gonna get him over the line, either by stoppage or on the judges' scorecards. But yeah, job done for Bam.
Yeah, absolutely. On Cafu, I'll maybe play devil's advocate, give him a bit of credit here, because I think he's a big puncher in him, and I think the thinking behind the game plan is to try and limit the amount of space around him Bam has to do the pivots. And we touched on there was no game plan Daniel Dubois could employ to beat Usyk. There's probably no game plan Kafu could have deployed to beat Bam. He had a puncher's chance at best, and I guess he was trying to hang in the fight as long as possible to land that one shot, but inconsequential in the end. That Puma Martinez fight, a serious fight. Puma's always been touted as one of the top fighters in the division, away from Rodriguez, probably the number one, coming off great win over Kazuda Ioka as well. I think I know you answer to this question, but you favour Bam to get that one done?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a relatively interesting fight. It'll be more entertaining than the Cafu fight was, but as I was saying on the reaction on Saturday, it's Puma Martinez's style will lend itself to an earlier night, I think, than Cafu had. Cafu went what, 10, was it? I think Puma Martinez's aggression, he won't be in any corners. He'll be coming into the center of the ring, looking to rip the body, and it'll be very fun while it lasts. Puma Martinez is a very, very good fighter. Proved it twice in Japan against Ioka, but he's going to be way too outgunned, and there's no shame in it. Everybody at Superfly is going to be outgunned by Bam Rodriguez. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's my favorite fighter in the world. I know he's probably yours as well, from how we talk about him. Yeah, just outstanding. And yeah, I am looking forward to it though, but I think it'll be an earlier Bam stoppage, maybe about round five.
Yeah, I'm buzzing for it. I agree with you as well. I think stylistically, it's a fight that will create more openings for Bam, and I just think his feet will be the difference in a big way. Puma very heavy-handed. I wouldn't be surprised if he had pockets of success. We see Bam has been dropped before against Gaio Estrada, but yeah, ultimately it's a question of levels. And Fernando Martinez is a world-class fighter without question, but Bam Rodriguez is an elite fighter, and I think he'll prove that on the night. Quick word on the co-main, and then we'll wrap things up. Diego Pacheco getting a decision win over Trevor McCumbee. Tough Trevor McCumbee. Obviously gave Caleb Plant, plenty to think about when they boxed. And yeah, Pacheco, young, establishing himself as one of the top guys at 168. When those belts free up, as we're expecting them to at some point over the next 12, 18 months, I feel like it's a conversation we've been having for a while, but Canelo Alvarez does look to be coming towards the end. That Terence Crawford fight getting closer and closer. Can you see Pacheco establishing himself at the top of the division? Where does he fit in? You've got Hamza Shiraz delivered a great statement win over Edgar Berlanga. You got Christian and Billy doing some good things over in Canada. Blue Selecchia went around. Osleys Iglesias, the Cuban, a lot of people are excited about him. Can Pacheco be top dog in 168 in the post Canelo era, do you think?
100%. Yeah, I think he will. Once them belts start to become kind of broken up, fragmented a bit, the performance on Saturday night it wasn't the most exciting. It did get kind of boos from the crowd, but he done a job. It was a workmanlike performance. He done a job against an awkward, explosive opponent in Trevor McCumbee. Especially the way McCumbee attacks. He's so kind of unorthodox and explosive. So yeah, Pacheco got it done. It was a decent win. Didn't set the world alight, but I'm a big fan. I think he has all the tools. He has the size, the range, the combination punching, and he's a big puncher as well. So I think he will pick up a title. But as you say, it's an interesting division. There's really good young names coming up. The likes of Iglesias, Pacheco and Billy is a big fight. That was, I know, supposed to happen with purse bids, etc. Didn't come to fruition. And Billy's a big player. Iglesias, Hamza Shiraz, who's announced himself at 168 with a bang last weekend. So yeah, I think Hamza Shiraz for me will be the top dog in a couple of years' time at super middleweight. But I think it could be a budding rivalry. There could be the two top dogs there in Pacheco and Hamza Shiraz for me vying for a top spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see how it plays out at 168. Don't want to cast too many dispersions over Canelo's name, but I think he has held the careers of some fighters back, holding all four belts for so long, not fighting the best guys, not being mandated to fight the best guys. So I guess it's criticism for the governing bodies more than him. But I'm excited to see how it unfolds out. A lot of exciting fighters. Who do I think will establish themselves at the top? I think if Janabek moves up in good time, it could be him. To be honest, he's been saw a photo of him beside Dimitri Bivol the other day, and he looked bigger than Bivol. So you'd think that move up to 160, it's bound to happen soon, especially if this Adames fight doesn't happen. And I think he might be a bit better than the crop of guys coming through at 168. But Iglesias, good fighter. Shiraz looked devastating, as we said. So we shall see. Now we've chatted for about got to 25 minutes, half an hour there. Really enjoyed it. Hopefully, the guys in the comments enjoyed it as well. We're going to try and keep these weekend recap shows coming, particularly for weekends as stacked as this. Although I don't know the next time we'll see one of those. Folks, thanks for watching. Now, appreciate you hopping on. Be sure to subscribe and catch you soon.
Cheers, take care.